Welcome to the Wrestling Still Cool podcast. My name's KM. This is going to be a little bit of a different podcast because honestly I haven't hosted a complete show by myself without my partner and or someone to interview during this time. With that said, the socials are, you can follow us on Twitter at WrestlingSCool. You can find us on Facebook as Wrestling Still Cool, Instagram, Wrestling Still Cool, TikTok, Wrestling Still Cool 90. And one thing I will ask about you guys is to go ahead and kind of engage here, because I don't have anyone to really bounce these ideas off of, and realistically, one-man show. So if you can provide me any kind of feedback after you listen to this, whether it be at the socials or our email at wrestlingstillcool@gmail.com, I would definitely appreciate it, and would like to, at that point, counter you in the next time I do a recording session. I have a couple episodes planned. We have an interview with the new Intergender Bonanza champion, Marcus Mathers, scheduled for Wednesday. This coming up week. I'm recording this on Saturday night. With that said, we will be doing that interview, and that will be uploaded shortly thereafter. I also am planning on doing something kind of booking episode where I get to talk a little bit more about Retribution and how WWE royally messed up a good opportunity to have a good stable to make 2020 a more interesting year for them. But you know, like I said, it's a love-hate relationship with WWE. We're not mad. We're not angry with WWE. We're just disappointed. They could have done better. We're like a disappointing parent with the TV show that we grew up with that was able to produce some of the best wrestling in the late 90s and early 2000s, and still they find a way to mess it up completely. But this is more of the past week rewind episode, if you will. Raw was Raw. I hate to be negative towards WWE and Raw in general, but it kind of comes across like they're not really trying. The storylines there are kind of iffy at best. They're trying to make Retribution to something, and this goes back to the other episode I plan on recording. They're trying to make Retribution to something, well, even at that point, it's just Mace and T-Bar. Interesting. They removed the mask, but now they're painting their faces like Accent Smash from Demolition. It's not necessary. We know those guys are Dio Madden and Donovan Dijakovic from NXT. And if they want to keep calling them Mason T-Bar, they can keep calling them Mason T-Bar. I'm still going to think of them as T-Bag due to the social media heat that they got. But they're not really a threat, and it's not making any sense where they're trying to go with this. Like, are they or aren't they part of the Hurt Business? It just doesn't make sense. And realistically, it makes Bobby Lashley look like a coward against Drew McIntyre. Which, if he is, he is. That's fine. The cowardly heels can work their heat magnet, and now we have a triple threat with Braun Strowman and Drew McIntyre and Bobby Lashley at Backlash. I'm not going to call it WrestleMania Backlash. They have a triple threat match at Backlash, which could be good. And I do think they're going to keep running these triple threats for as long as they want to keep having a dominant champion like Bobby Lashley and like Roman Reigns, because they don't want the contenders to look weak to get pinned by them, even though Roman Reigns basically stacked Daniel Bryan on top of Edge and pinned them both. But it's a good way to kind of make sure that they don't look weak in a situation where you want your champion to look very, very strong, and that when someone finally beats them, they look good. So, and at that point, I can kind of agree with what WWE is doing. Then again, there's different ways they could have gone about it. And then you have Shelton Benjamin and Cedric Alexander, which are going for the tag team titles. Good for them. However, why are they still wearing the Hurt Business colors? They're in black and gold. It doesn't make sense. They got kicked out of this group. They basically got trashed and beat up and then kicked out of the group. So why would they still wear their colors and show respect to a group that they pretty much got pushed from by Bobby Lashley and MVP? I think there's an opportunity there for them to change the gear, change the name, come up with something a little bit different than the Hurt Business. Unless, of course, they plan on bringing the Hurt Business back together in WWE. It wouldn't be the first time. I really don't understand this necessity that they feel to go ahead and get the potential champion to be on his own. They did that with the Big E, splitting him up from the New Day. But it's one of those where what happened to the champion being part of a stable? Majority of the time that Triple H was a champion, he was in a stable of some sort, whether it be DX or Evolution. So why does it have to be different for these people? It doesn't make them look weak. It just makes them look like they have to have a little bit of backup. And, like I said before, and when people trash the fact that AEW has so many stables, people are bound to be together by clicks. They have a common interest. It's complete normal human behavior, and why would they take that away from them? It's something you can build more storylines off of, especially if someone gets a little bit jealous of the main guy having a champion, kind of like what they did with building up Evolution and Randy Orton versus Triple H and Batista versus Triple H. This is something that they could have done again. And then on Tuesday night, we had NXT, and I regret to say this, but for some reason my DVR did not catch NXT, so I really don't have any kind of opinion on that show. I did notice that NXT, it's being reported that NXT did file a trademark for a nickname for Top Dollar, which could be very interesting who they're going to plan on signing that to. NXT is a good product. It's probably one of the better WWE products. I think SmackDown and NXT are probably the best two WWE products you're going to find currently. So it is good that they're keep building up that brand. They have Finn Balor to be basically the representation of that brand. Gargano's good. Ciampa as well as many others. Before I get off completely off of Raw, I don't dig the new commentator. I think his name is Agnon Verk, something along those lines. I'm not going to be judgmental because I've never done that line of work, and from what I gather from other people on podcasts, it's hard to do. It's not like normal sports broadcasting. You have to be on top of it 24/7. The breaks are a little bit timed differently for wrestling than it would be for a football game, a hockey game, a baseball game, what have you, especially for ad breaks. But it doesn't seem like it's working. And we got that Corey Graves versus Byron Saxton thing still going, and I wasn't entertained by it in the first place. So it's one of those where it's kind of grinding at this point. NXT has good commentators. I enjoy their commentators. It's just Raw needs a lot of work. They're no longer the flagship show. The flagship show is SmackDown, which is rightfully earned. You have Roman Reigns leading that. You have Cesaro on there, Seth Rollins, as well as a few others. Sticking with the whole commentary, critique, I guess you could say, is Pat McAfee reminds me a lot of Matt Striker. They sound very, very similar. It's weird listening to him because you can tell he's trying. He is starting off on a really good foot. Which is probably more reflective of the fact that he has done podcasting and things like that, so he's used to being on a microphone like that. The only thing is his voice. It just brings me vibes of Matt Striker, and that's really, really odd. Another thing I like about what SmackDown's doing with Apollo Crews. Apollo Crews, even though I don't really like this Nigerian character, if you will, he at least is running with a character that they got working with him. And it just gives me a little bit of reminiscence of Kofi being a Jamaican. Kofi being a Jamaican. But it'll be interesting to see what they do from here. There was one other comment I wanted to make about Raw, and that's the Arcade Bro. Randy Orton and Matt Riddle. Now, I don't mind the name. They've done something like this before with Randy Orton with Rated RKO. But at the same time, it's one of those where I'm not sure if they are a really big fit for each other character-wise. I think privately, probably it would be a situation where Randy Orton and Matt Riddle are close friends. They seem to have a lot of respect for one another, and one of the things that Randy Orton has gotten in trouble with in the past has been his marijuana uses, which is something that Matt Riddle is somewhat known for. But again, when we're on SmackDown, that's the flagship show now. I don't know if WWE will officially publish it, but it more than likely has to do with the fact that WWE is on Fox now with SmackDown. They're no longer on a cable channel like USA with SmackDown. So they're putting all their eggs in the SmackDown basket, hoping to keep driving up ads since more people have access to SmackDown than they do Raw. It's a money reason, and that's understandable. The company has to have finances. Completely understand that. I just wish the writing would be more consistent across the board and more or less what it used to be back in the day. I know that's a very nostalgic look at it, but it's one of those things where it's hurting. their product is hurting overall. They're not one of the top shows of wrestling currently. They're probably, granted in size, they're one of the larger companies, but in terms of product, I would put them in a firm third place in general, because even though SmackDown and NXT are written well, Raw is written terribly. Then you have AEW, which is a little bit more of an entertaining product, as well as Impact being a more entertaining product. And that's more of a negative sign on WWE than anything else. They have the size and they have the staff available to make a really good wrestling TV show. And they continue to struggle with it. And it does not make sense. And at this point now with SmackDown, we had a Roman Reigns versus Daniel Bryan match to where now Daniel Bryan's banished from SmackDown. That could be a good thing. I don't know where he's going to go, whether it's going to be Raw and NXT. But I honestly would like to see him on NXT. I think there's more of a prospect there for him to face. I would like to see a Daniel Bryan versus Balor again. See Daniel Bryan versus Johnny Gargano. See Daniel Bryan versus Ciampa. All those other possibilities. And it could be a really good change for him. Honestly, even Cameron Grimes. Cameron Grimes would be a good match with Daniel Bryan. And as long as Cameron Grimes keeps doing what he's doing on NXT, I see him being a really good character for them to bring up to the main roster. I am a little weary about it because I think they'll just completely destroy him. Like they seem to destroy people way too much and constantly after each other. I mean, Bobby Roode was a glorious character, and no pun intended, and it was an NXT champion. Now he flounders on the main roster. He's in a tag team right now with Dolph Ziggler called the Dirty Dogs, and I'm sorry, it's just not that interesting. I mean, the other tag team that they faced this past week on SmackDown was the Street Profits with Bianca Belair. I'm more interested in the Street Profits and Bianca Belair than I am in them. And that's more or less just because the writing has just been so terrible in general. Why am I going to care about this tag team that's more likely to get squashed again and not be what it should be? I mean, Dolph Ziggler is a talented person. So is Bobby Roode. Why are they in a tag team that really is not doing much? They have been champions, or they are champions currently, but they're not dominant champions. It's almost as if you should try and kind of treat this as like a Shawn Michaels Triple H thing, and I'm drawing comparisons to them. The characters are similar, and builds are kind of similar, but they're not a really top tier. They're not booked to be a top tier tag team. And what's this name, the Dirty Dogs? That's not even a great name, but you know, be as it may, it's WWE's creative. I can't tell them how to run their company. I could critique it and I could say what I would do differently, but I can't tell them how to run it because they know who they have on staff. They know who's writing. They know what their talent can do. I mean, you would expect them to know what their talent could do. So there's only so much I could do besides complain on here or anywhere else. I'm not happy with what they're doing. In any case, moving off of WWE, we have AEW. Dynamite, which had the main event be Darby Allin versus I'm blanking on his name right now, 10 from the Dark Order. One of the things that Darby Allin is definitely showing himself to be is a marketable guy. He draws a lot of attention towards him during his matches. 10's a great wrestler. I'm actually very, very impressed with the Dark Order in general. With the exception of they had a squash match in the beginning of Dynamite, which I didn't like. Adam Page got completely destroyed by Brian Cage. Brian Cage did get the jump on him, which definitely makes sense and doesn't necessarily make Adam Page look weak. But I'm just not a fan of squash matches. Don't like them. Never did. But this one was actually written fairly well. I'll give him a little bit of credit with that. Both beginning and end matches of the night were pretty good. We also saw a trios tag team match with the Factory, led by QT Marshall, and I am blanking on the other people on his team, versus Billy Gunn, Dustin Rhodes, and Lee Johnson from the Nightmare Factory. Not a bad match. There's a lot of interference done by the Factory. Anthony Ogogo punches Lee Johnson in the gut, and they get the pin. And they proceed to do a beatdown after. Once the retaliation comes back from Austin and Connor Gunn, Marshall hightails it and meets Cody Rhodes.